Welcome to the Lofoten Islands. This place is absolutely incredible. One of the most beautiful places we've ever been in our life. For the next 4 days, we're gonna be bringing you around during winter on some of our favorite hikes, some of the best viewpoints like this, and other amazing spots you are not gonna wanna miss. And we might even see the northern lights here. We're so excited to bring you along on this trip, and let's get cruising. North of the Arctic Circle, among spectacular tall rugged mountains rising directly from the sea, lies the Lofoten Islands. These remote islands have drawn fishermen, explorers, climbers, and adventurers from all over the world, captivated by their wild beauty, natural resources, unspoiled wildlife, and unique coastal culture. Lofoten offers something for everyone. From long mountain hikes to exploring the rich culture and history, discover the magic of Lofoten with us. If you guys are new here, we're Steven and Giselle, also known as the Lover's Passport. We've been to over 41 different countries, and out of all of them, Norway and specifically the Lofoten Islands is among some of the most beautiful places that we have ever been. We're going to be going over how to get to the Lofoten Islands, how long to stay, best time to visit, how much it is, things to know before you visit, things to do, and where to go. So we are so excited to dive into this how-to guide for Lofoten with you. With that, let's go ahead and get started.
So how do you get to the Lofoten Islands during the winter? There's a few different ways to do it. We actually started over in Finland, and that's not necessarily the most recommended route for everyone. But if you're trying to fly as close to possible to get to the islands, we'd recommend flying into either SVJ, which is the Svolvær airport, and that's gonna have the more amount of options in the area, or the Leknes airport, which is really, really small. So there's not too many incoming and outgoing flights from these two airports, but especially if you're coming from like Oslo or Tromsø, you might be able to connect into there through some of the regional airlines. Way less options if you're trying to fly direct from an international flight. If you are not flying into one of those, which are the closest two airports within the islands, then you're gonna probably either fly into Bodo and take the ferry over to the Moskenes region of Lofoten, or you're going to fly into Tromsø and make a giant old road trip down the island. And so you have a few different options. We're actually trying to come back here in the summertime, and we're looking at all of those. So it really just depends on your budget and how much you're willing to drive. Because if you do fly into like Tromsø, it's gonna be about a 7-hour drive down to get to the Lofoten Islands. Whereas if you fly into SVJ or Leknes, it's gonna be much closer, like a 1 to 2 hour drive, depending on where you're going to be based within the islands.
The ferry from Bodo into Lofoten is a 3.5-hour ferry, and it is very, very extreme. We've heard that people can get really bad motion sickness if you guys have problems with seasickness along the way. So if you guys are taking the ferry from Bodo to the Lofoten Islands, just keep that in mind. Another thing to remind yourself is you definitely want to book that ferry in advance. It does get booked up very far in advance, so we recommend doing it before your trip or right when you book your plane tickets. And you can even rent your car in Bodo and then bring your car with you on the ferry, so you have a rental car when you're going around the Lofoten Islands. Now, how long should you stay in Lofoten? We would highly recommend minimum of 2 days to see the highlights. That's where you can go to the main, most picturesque spots that you've probably seen on Instagram before. Now, if you really want to see it and you want to spend some time doing the hikes, checking out all of the most important fishermen villages, we would recommend about 1 week to do the Lofoten Islands justice and spend time everywhere. Now, if you guys were looking to really see everything, do all of the best hikes, make sure to get out and go kayaking and check out all of the fishermen villages. We would recommend around 2 weeks max if you were going to do that type of itinerary. Now, when is the best time to visit the Lofoten Islands? We would recommend visiting in June or July for midnight sun. We are actually getting ready to go back in July to experience the midnight sun there, and we will make a full summer road trip through the Lofoten Islands YouTube video coming this summer. Right now, we would recommend, because we want to go see the northern lights, going in either September or March. During the months of October, November, December, January, and February, it is their winter, so they have a lot of clouds, very wild weather. So we definitely recommend, if you are going during the winter, to go in the latter half of September or in the earlier part of March, so you can still get those winter vibes, but you also have more clear skies so you can see the northern lights. When we went, we saw the northern lights 4 out of the 5 nights we were there, which was crazy. We had amazingly beautiful clear skies. And how much is it to visit the Lofoten Islands? Now, this is one of the most expensive places we have been. If you guys have been to Switzerland or Australia or even Iceland, this is on par with that. When it comes to housing, it is definitely going to be a little bit more expensive, but the nice thing is you can also rent a van or just tent camp in Norway. During the winter, I'm not sure if I would recommend that, but it is an option if you guys want to save some money going during the summer. When it comes to food is very, very expensive, but it is also pretty good. The fish is very, very fresh. They have amazing cinnamon rolls. There's all kinds of different food restaurants depending on which fisherman village you go to. So I would definitely recommend planning to eat out a few meals, but you can also camp and make your own food. One of the Airbnbs that we stayed in Rain had great accommodations and had a full kitchen that we could cook in. So there's a good spot where you can save some money there. But overall, just remember Norway and especially the Lofoten Islands is going to be a little bit more pricey.
So now that we have all of that covered, let's jump into some things that you need to know before you go. First thing is weather is super unpredictable. Very similar here in the States if you've been to a place like Colorado where you're starting a hike and it's completely sunny and by the time you get to the top, it could be completely snowy and blizzarding. So make sure when you are packing that you are prepared for all kinds of weather, especially if you're doing any sort of outdoor activity like hiking. Make sure you have all of your different kinds of layers, whether it's a thermal layer and then your mid layer, your outer jacket, as well as a windbreaker, a raincoat, etc. So that way you're prepared for any kinds of weather. We visited in March, which was the shoulder season, and we actually had some pretty nice weather the full time we were there for the most part, which is not always the case. So we got very lucky with like a quote unquote warm winter season where we had nice blue skies. However, most of the time it is pretty rainy here and there when it's that kind of season. Next up is you're probably going to want to have a rental car. We ended up renting ours from the Rovaniemi airport because we did start in Finland before we got to the Lofoten Islands, but you can also rent directly from either of the airports or down by the ferry when you come across from Bodo, whether you're doing it at the Bodo airport or from, I think it's pronounced Moskenes. Sorry if my Norwegian pronunciations are wrong. I'm trying my best here.
Moskenes.
There are car rentals that are smaller that you can reach out to in Lofoten themselves. They just don't have as much availability as those big airports that you'll be flying into. So make sure to make your car rental reservations pretty far in advance. That being said, if you don't want to do a car and you want to do more of the camper van route, that's a great area to do a camper van as well. Just make sure that you are booking at least 6 months out because there's not a huge inventory and it's become very, very trendy to do this during the summertime in Lofoten. So like I said, give yourself a lot of extra time. That leads into the streets are pretty narrow. So if you are driving your own rental car, just be super careful. The roads are actually very, very nice. We were complimenting them the entire time we were out there of how much better they are than California's roads. They're super well maintained, especially even in the winter time. The tunnels are beautiful. Don't have any issues, but just make sure that they are pretty narrow and they can get a little windy. So if you do get car sick, make sure to pack some Dramamine. Now this region has some of the most incredible hikes in all of Norway, but when you're hiking in winter, there's a lot more precautions that you need to be considerate of when you are attempting to go out on these hikes. First being, you need to have some sort of traction with you. So like whether that's snowshoes, crampons, hiking poles, micro spikes, like we absolutely recommend bringing them if you're hiking during the winter time, because hiking out here during the winter time is so much more dangerous. Obviously, you always want to be careful regardless of the season you're hiking, but particularly in winter, people get rescued out here all the time. Literally, we're just doing a trail in rain and it is very, very steep and icy, and we knew when to turn around because we just didn't feel comfortable continuing. So we've made it up about 500 feet from the top, but there's this giant snowfield behind us, which is really sketchy and icy, so we decided to stop.
We knew our limits here.
We knew our limits, but we told these people going up the same day, like, hey, the conditions aren't great in the last 100 meters. You should just be very careful, and we'd recommend not going up there. And they're like, whatever. Then we read on the news that those two people got rescued by helicopter 2 days ago. So do not overestimate the nature out here. Make sure to know your limits. If you are remotely questioning if you should be doing a hike or not, you probably shouldn't be doing it. So just keep that in mind. Find some less steep alternative hikes if there are ones that you want to do, or come back in the summertime in order to hike those to make sure you're being safe. Outside of that, you're also going to want to make sure that you're checking out avalanche conditions before you go hiking. I will link the app that we use down below for checking the avalanche danger, as well as making sure you have all of your trail data downloaded. You have an emergency device like a Garmin or a spot unit, something like that in the case of emergencies, as well as all of your 10 essentials. Super important that you guys are bringing these on your winter hikes out here.
And lastly, this is kind of a more upbeat note. You will see fish everywhere because this area was a huge fisherman's village, and you're gonna see them drying out the fish. Due to Lofoten's really unique weather patterns, this is one of the only places in the world that you can actually hang dry them outside like they do if you visit and you see this. Because it's such a unique climate, it actually preserves the fish perfectly and they won't rot. If you were to try to do this anywhere else, the fish would go bad. So it's very interesting to learn about the fisherman history background of all these little different islands in Lofoten.
So where should you stay when you guys are coming to the Lofoten Islands? We would really recommend 3 different areas. The first one being Ballstad. That is personally where we stayed, and it is the furthest north out of the 3 different locations. It was a great little spot. We stayed at Hotvika, which was absolutely incredible. There are a lot of really affordable options in the area.
For this leg of our trip, we're staying at the cutest spot called the Hotvika Lodge, and this is our cute little cabin. This is a seaside suite called Vegabua, and so come on in. We have a cute little kitchenette area with a microwave, a dishwasher, and a fridge, and they give you a ton of dishes so you're able to cook some of your own food. We do not have a stove in here, but we do have the microwave, so that's at least a little something something. They give you coffee and tea every day. I think they do have limits on it though. You do only get like 2 capsules of coffee per day per person. We have our beautiful seaside suite. We have our nice cozy bed. This bed was really, really comfortable. Nice little reading nook, and then outside of here we have our own private jacuzzi, which is so nice. You also can rent the hot tub for your personal use as well. They have like a more public one and a more public sauna right next to it, so that is amazing. And of course we have a beautiful view of the other roorboos, the other sea fishermen's cabins that are nice, beautiful, and red out of our window. A little desk setup. We have a nice bathroom, which is amazing because it has heated floors and a beautiful makeup light and a freestanding tub and a great shower. So
the next spot that is a little bit further south is going to be Bramberg. This is actually where we're planning on staying this summer. So if you guys want to see more of that, make sure to subscribe so you can see all of our summer content from Norway. And the last spot that we'd recommend staying is down in Rain, which is another spot that we stayed during this trip. That was a fantastic place to stay because it is directly inside the most famous part of the Lofoten Islands. It is also the most south facing. So it's next to a ton of amazing hikes. That is the spot where we wanted to shoot most of the northern lights, as well as that is where you see all of these stunning, beautiful pictures of the yellow and the red houses in that area. So we would highly recommend staying in all 3 of those. You really can't go wrong. It just depends on what you plan on doing that day and how much you're willing to drive. Since we based ourselves in Ballstad, everywhere was around an hour to an hour and a half drive both ways. So we might drive an hour north, we might drive an hour south, but everything was within that region. If you go all the way down and stay in Rain, for instance, it might be a 2-hour drive to come up and see a couple of the more northern areas. So plan your trip accordingly. You can't go wrong. Every single place is surrounded by these beautiful mountains, and it is so stunning.
And if you guys want to know exactly where to stay, we actually made a whole video on our favorite Northern Lights accommodations that we stayed at around the Lofoten Islands. So if you guys want to check that out, we will link it up here as well as down below in the description box so that you guys can check it out. Now, what is there to do while you're visiting the Lofoten Islands? Well, there's plenty. It's an outdoor adventure lover's dream destination, especially if you love water sports and hiking. So firstly, hiking in Norway, in particular in Lofoten Islands, is just absolutely breathtaking. You are surrounded by these crazy jagged peaks, and as long as you don't mind a little bit of elevation gain, and by a little bit, I mean usually a minimum of 1,000 feet, so they are pretty steep in about a mile, then you're going to be rewarded with some crazy epic views the entire time you are hiking.
Another hike you're going to want to do when you're out here is called Mannen. This hike is absolutely incredible. It takes you to this beautiful overlook over 2 stunning beaches, especially when the sun was out earlier. The color of the water was absolutely madness, and this is a great bang for your buck hike. It's 2.6 miles round trip, about 1,100 feet of elevation gain. During the winter, totally doable, and all you really need to do is come up to this ridge. As you can see, this ridge goes all the way up till you get to the peak. The peak was a little bit sus for us to hike up, especially during the winter. There's a lot of exposure. If you guys are a little bit nervous of hikes, I don't think I would recommend Mannen to do for a hike, but it is still absolutely incredible if you're looking for a great day hike. Took us about an hour, 15 minutes to get up here, and I'm sure it'll be a nice quick hike on the way down since it's only 1,100 feet of elevation gain, and there's a nicely marked trail the whole way down. You do have to pay for parking though. It looks like it was around $4 US for us to park out here, but we highly recommend doing this, especially if you have some nice weather and there's not too windy. It's a beautiful hike to do out here.
We did the Ryton and Klavica Beach Trail, which was amazing. We did, like I mentioned, Rainbriggen earlier, but we turned around, and that is the really dangerous winter hike. So after our experience on there, we would not comfortably recommend it to people. And yeah, there's a ton of different hikes that you can choose on there. I would recommend going on all trails and go and do a ton of your own research to see what you are most comfortable with based on your hiking levels. The next thing that you're going to want to do is go out on a kayaking tour. We actually did this through the accommodation that we were staying at, which was the Hotvika Lodge over in Ballstad. And we did a little half day morning, 3-hour-ish tour out on the water. And it was a ton of fun. The water was absolutely gorgeous. It's this turquoise see-through color that you really wouldn't expect for Norway, but it is so incredible, and you're surrounded by these gorgeous mountains the whole time. You can see some really cool sea life too if you're lucky.
How was it?
That was fun. That was beautiful. So blue.
So we definitely recommend doing a kayaking tour. If you're really brave, you can even go scuba diving out in Lofoten, but that's a whole other story. If you are certified, you're going to want to make sure that you're comfortable diving in dry suits because it is so cold out there. If you're into water sports, you can actually go surfing out here in Lofoten, whether you're doing it during the midnight sun or even if you're doing a northern light surf sesh. Pretty cool that you can be surfing out in this area, but like I said, the water's pretty chilly and the waves are pretty crazy. So you do not want to be a beginner surfer out here. And lastly, depending on what time of year you're visiting, you can either chase the northern lights or the midnight sun or the polar nights. So if you're visiting during the winter time, you're probably going to be chasing the polar nights. So you don't have a ton of daylight, but you have like this almost beautiful, lasting cotton candy colors on the horizon. And then when you're moving into the northern light season, obviously that's gonna be from September to April. So that way it's dark enough outside where you're actually able to see them. And if you guys want to see a whole video that we've done on how to chase and photograph the northern lights, we'll link that down in the description box below as well as up here for you. And then if you are going during the middle of summertime, especially in July, you will be able to experience the midnight sun, which basically gives you like that never-ending 24 hours of daylight where you can feel like it's always sunset and sunrise. So we're really excited. That's what we're actually going out to do this July. So keep posted on our channel to see some midnight sun content in the future. All right, so now here's what you all been waiting for, where to go on your Lofoten itinerary. So first things first, we'll start with our favorite, which was Rain. If you want to keep going south to that's another spot as well. But Rain was a cute little fisherman's village. We stayed there for about 2 nights and it was a great experience, especially if you're going in the summertime. You can hike Rainbriggen while you're down there. There's a really cute coffee shop.
When you guys are here, one of the best spots to go and grab coffee and breakfast is going to be right here at the Briggen Coffee Bar. We got cinnamon rolls and coffee, and you just have this incredible view of all the mountains in front of you. So would highly recommend.
There's a Circle K, some other restaurants down there. We'd spend about 1 to 2 days down in Rain during your trip and then make our way a little more north once you've hit the most southern parts of that area. There's some really scenic viewpoints along the way, including this bridge that takes you to this really cool horn. I think it's literally just called the Horn Viewing Point, and we'll put a picture of it right here, but we definitely recommend checking that out. Next up, we have Sakrasoy, which unlike all of the other traditional fishermen's villages down in Lofoten, which is because they used to use actually whale's blood and mix it in with a paint and paint the roarboos red so that they'd be visible from afar when you are out on the fishing boats. Sakrasoy actually has this almost orangey yellow color of the roarboos. So it's very stark and it very much stands out compared to the other fishermen's village, and it's very photogenic. And while you guys are stopping there, we'd recommend checking out Anita's Seafood for some lunch if you are hungry and want a traditional Norwegian fish kind of meal. It was delicious and had a very nice view of the mountains. Once you're done at Sakrasoy, we'd end up moving over to Hamnoy, which is a short drive away. This is probably the most iconic, picturesque postcard view you've seen of the roarboos in all of Lofoten. If you've seen that shot of front, there's a bridge, there's this water, there's this crazy mountain in the background and all these red fishermen's village houses, then that's probably the Hamnoy Scenic Viewpoint. And you'll see a lot of photographers camped out on this bridge all day long, whether it's sunrise, sunset, or if you're there chasing the northern lights. This was a very popular destination to shoot the aurora. We got some really cool photos, which we'll also put up here. And then that takes us into the next destination, which is Nusfjord. Nusfjord was the only one that we actually had to pay for going into it. And so it was kind of a little underwhelming in our opinion, but it was still worth checking it out, especially if you're going hiking in that area, or if you're more into the history of Lofoten, you can go and pay a small fee to go walk around the village and learn about its history. We just thought some of the other villages were a little bit better in our opinion.
Another town that we recommended earlier to actually stay in, but we definitely recommend visiting if you are not staying here, is Ballstad. Ballstad is one of the biggest fisherman villages in the entire area. It does have access to a ton of different activities, so if you are doing a tour or an experience in the area, this is most likely where you will be meeting if you are staying near the rain area. It is also great because it is pretty central. You can visit a ton of the areas in Lofoten from Ballstad proper, so we definitely recommend spending some time there. It's a beautiful fisherman's village, and if you guys don't stay at Hatvika, we definitely recommend at least going having a lunch or a dinner there because the view is incredible. Two other spots that we would definitely recommend adding to your list are Hockland Beach and Unstad Beach. Both these beaches are great to watch the northern lights. You can also see the midnight sun from here. They have these beautiful, stunning white beaches all the way around, as well as they have incredibly blue water. So we loved hanging out, having a picnic before we went on a few of the hikes that are directly next to these two beaches. Unstad Beach was actually known as the world's most northernmost surf school, which is pretty crazy to think about. And one fun fact about Hockland Beach is it was actually rated as the #1 beach in Europe by Lonely Planet. Such a stunning beach. The beautiful white sand mixed with the stunning blue water is so picturesque to check out. So we would highly recommend spending some time here. The last town that we're going to recommend is visiting Hengsveer. Hengsveer is one of the most hipster and trendy villages that you can visit. It has tons of fine art stores. It has lots of areas where you can buy beautiful sweaters or souvenirs. The cafes are to die for. It's probably where we went to our favorite just coffee shops, as well as it is home to the famous soccer field. This soccer field has been photographed from all over the world because it's on this floating small island with this beautiful mountain backdrop for one of the most famous hikes in the Lofoten Islands. We definitely recommend spending an afternoon here, checking out the soccer field, grabbing a bite to eat, and walking around the picturesque downtown area. And with that, we're going to be wrapping up our Lofoten guide. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe. If you want to check out how to chase the northern lights, any of our other recommendations that we have done here in Finland, Sweden, or Lapland, you can check all of those videos out in the description. And next up, we have our ultimate guide to Sweden, Finland, and Norway coming out right after this video. So be on the lookout. We are really excited for that, and we cannot wait to go back to Lofoten this summer.
Thank you so much for watching our little winter guide to the Lofoten Islands. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more adventures, and we will see you on the next one.